Right. Controversial video time. I'm hoping you're going to enjoy this. Like and subscribe if you do, but I understand this is going to be controversial. I think all games should be easy. I think every game should be able to be completed by someone who's never played a game before, and I'm going to explain why in this. We're going to talk about Call of Duty Zombies, we're going to talk about Dark Souls, because that's obviously the big one, and I'm going to talk a little bit towards the end about why it's not just that I think everyone should be able to complete every game, but I also think that harder difficulties might actually be harming you. And that's, you know, maybe a new take on it, maybe a unpopular take, but I'll try and explain it as best as I can. All of this was kind of inspired by something Dara Ó Briain said in one of his stand-up routines a few years ago. He was talking about how video games are a weird kind of media because they stop you from accessing content based on how good you are. You need to learn certain skills, you need to overcome challenges in order to see some of the content that you've paid for because, you know, you bought the game. And that's really weird. Like, you can't be bad at watching a film. Like, you can't be bad at reading a book. Books don't get to the end of the chapter and say, have you properly understood these themes and references? And if you fail a quiz, they just shut the next chapter and say, nope, you need to read it again. That would be weird. Like, albums don't judge you on your dancing and say, well, you're clearly not really into this yet, so you have to listen to the first track again before I'm going to show you the other ones. But video games do. You could buy a game thinking, oh cool, I've seen there's this awesome thing that happens in the second half of the game, and then never be able to get there just because you weren't good enough. And that's really, really bizarre. I think as gamers, it's super easy to forget the skills that we've learned by playing games for so long. Little things like using 2 analog sticks at once, one to move around and one to look around. That's a skill that I'm sure anyone who's tried to get like a family member or a friend who's not into video games into playing Call of Duty has had that frustration of seeing them kind of spinning around on a spot or looking up at the sky or looking at their feet or bumping into walls, because it's a very unnatural skill to have. Even things like understanding cover, understanding like health regeneration, things like that. It's stuff that we've learned over a very long time, and for new people trying to get into it, that's quite a difficult thing to do. Now, obviously, not all games have this problem. There's loads of games, particularly in the indie space, that have worked a lot on accessibility and have made it so actually the controls are as simple as possible because that gets more people into it. You can look at games like Fall Guys or Wii Sports. The sort of popularity of those games was huge because you didn't need any prior experience to get into them. Even some of the big budget AAA games over the last few years have been seen as some of the best games of all time, like Spider-Man, The Last of Us Part 2, The Witcher 3, Horizon Zero Dawn. They have a mode in them that's seen as kind of an easy mode or a story mode that's just there for people who don't want to deal with the challenges in the gameplay. They just want to experience the world, they just want to have some fun. And bear in mind, there's loads of people who just want to have fun with games. Like, that's really, really important. The thing that inspired this video, the game that inspired this video for me, the thing that I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is Call of Duty Zombies. Obviously with Forsaken coming out, I've been talking a lot about Easter eggs and things like that. And I was talking about the fact that in the olden days of Call of Duty Zombies, I've played like pretty much every Call of Duty Zombies map except for a couple of the DLC ones. I never did an Easter egg until last summer. I never got through to the end of it. And the reason for that was I didn't feel like I could work it out myself just playing solo. And I think there's loads of Easter eggs that, like, you know, Revelations being a good example, or even something like Origins, that would be incredibly difficult for somebody to work out by themselves. And I didn't really just want to sit there and follow a YouTube guide. I didn't think that'd be very fun. Speaking as someone that makes YouTube guides, I still don't think that's a good way to play a game. I think, speaking to game designers, if you've made a challenge in your game that people need to look up a guide online to be able to do, I think that's a failure. I think that's a bad thing. I think that means that you haven't provided the tools in the game for the average player to be able to see that content, to be able to complete that, and that's a real shame. And there's ways around it. Like, I would say for Zombies, the best way to do it would be to have some kind of locked easy mode. And what I mean by that is, obviously, one of the big arguments against Zombies being too easy, especially the Easter eggs, is that people want to see the community come together with an Easter egg hunt. They like the fact that there used to be these 2-3 days, sometimes a week-long hunt, where everyone would be working together, trying to find things, and that would be a lot of fun. And I agree, that could be a lot of fun. That's a good thing that's worth preserving. But what you could do is have a locked easy mode for all of the Call of Duty Zombies Easter eggs, where, say, for the first week, it's just as it is, and people need to work it out themselves. Then after a week after the Easter eggs launched, an easy mode option appears in a menu that you have to select, so it's off by default, but you select it, it now gives you an objective marker for every step of the Easter egg. Maybe it gives you a little bit more health, or gives you a little bit more ether, or whatever it is, gives you some perks by default, but just makes it so anyone can experience those stories, those events, those cinematics, all of that kind of stuff, with their friends without needing to look up a guide or anything like that. It wouldn't harm the people that were enjoying the hunt in the first place. That wouldn't be affected at all, but it would give loads of people a chance to get involved in this and see all of the content in the game without needing to head onto YouTube or without needing to find like that friend who's into zombies to carry them through it. I think that would be a really good idea. Now, they did something similar to this with Pawn Takes Pawn. So Pawn Takes Pawn, something that obviously I enjoyed the challenge of. I enjoyed the fact that that was difficult. I enjoyed the fact that not many people could do it. But at the end of Pawn Takes Pawn, they actually released like a cheat sheet for how to do all of the challenges in Zork, how to get all the achievements in Zork. And that was brilliant. I didn't see anyone complain about that. It was just kind of, okay, if you haven't been able to do it so far, here you go. Here's a list of like different ways you can do it. And they were just helping people out to access all of that content, which I personally think is always a really good thing. World of Warcraft also done something similar with the raids. In the early days of World of Warcraft, I was always kind of annoyed that I felt I was never going to see Molten Core, I was never going to see Onyxia, because I didn't have the time to be sort of preparing for raids, like getting all of the mats and stuff. Oh, it's not I didn't have the time, I just didn't want to spend the time doing that. And I didn't want to spend ages learning the raids, like hours and hours and hours learning the raids alongside sort of 39 other people or 24 other people. Like, that seemed like it'd be incredibly tedious, but I did want to experience the raids. When they added Raid Finder, brilliant system where when the raid is first out, then only people who are kind of at the right level, people who are really hardcore into it, they can access it, they can see it all, and they get that thrill of doing it first and working it out and having that challenge. And then a little while afterwards, it goes on Raid Finder, an easier version of the raid that everyone can experience, but you still get to see the story beats, you still get to see the events, the rooms, the bosses, all of that kind of thing is still there. And you don't get as good rewards, you don't get as good gear, but you still get something, and it's a nice way to be able to experience all the content. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Now, Dark Souls is the big game where people point to say, like, this game should always be hard. Like, an intrinsic part of the enjoyment of Dark Souls for people is that it is difficult. And that's fine. You can enjoy Dark Souls. No one's going to take that away from you. But imagine if Dark Souls had an easy mode, had a story mode, where you could select it at the beginning and you could go through Dark Souls and maybe enemies did basically no damage. You could play Dark Souls as kind of a power fantasy where you're just going through, slicing everyone up. You're not having to worry too much about what gear you've got on or dodging or anything like that. You're just getting to see all of the cool monster designs, the cool environments, the music, all of that stuff. So many more people would get into playing that. There's loads of times where I've played a Soulsborne game, I've really enjoyed it, and then I've said to one of my friends, like, oh, you should play this, it's really, really cool. And then they've been like, yeah, but it's going to be really hard and it's going to be frustrating and I don't really want to be spending, like, you know, if you're the sort of person who maybe plays video games for a couple of hours a week, you don't want to spend those 2 hours dying over and over again trying to get good at the game. Like, that would be a complete waste of time. That would be so frustrating. And so they don't play games like that. So I personally think every game should have some sort of easy mode, some sort of story mode where anyone could play it, anyone could experience that full story, everyone could see everything. And yeah, maybe they won't get the same sort of thing out of it as what you would if you had the challenge on top of it, if you had the kind of atmosphere of dread and fear and all of those kind of things. But if you want that stuff, you've still got it. It's an option. Like, I'm talking about this as an option for everything. Now, this is where I start to think, actually, maybe the difficulty is a bad thing. And this is probably the most controversial part of the video. I know there are people who will be sitting there saying, yeah, but people shouldn't expect things to be easy. Life isn't easy. Like, people should be able to overcome challenges. People give up too easily, all that sort of stuff. And I think that mindset is super dangerous. Not to other people, but to yourself. I think you are, if you have that mindset, you are probably at risk of damaging your own life experience. And what I mean by that is, completing video games is not an achievement. Being good at a video game is not an achievement. It's not something to particularly be proud of. It's not something that's going to help you in life. It's not something that you can boast about to other people. Very few people are ever going to care about it. Now, I'm not really talking about like esports here, or if you're playing games to make entertainment, like you're making content and the entertainment of your content is based on you being really good at the game. That's a different thing. Completely understand why those sort of people would want hard games, because then they can show off, because the showing off is the thing that's cool and the thing that's fun. But if you're just playing games for yourself, and then, you know, you're playing Call of Duty Zombies and you're like, yeah, I can like speedrun this Easter egg, or I can get to around 400 in Outbreak, or whatever it is. The time you're investing in learning how to do that is essentially wasted. If you're having fun with it, that's absolutely fine. Like, if the time you're playing, you're enjoying, that's absolutely fine. But if you're feeling like you're just getting a sense of achievement because you've completed a difficult challenge, that's the bit where I think there's a problem. I've often felt like that I might use that rush of excitement of completing a challenge in games as a substitute for having that same rush of excitement of completing challenges in real life. Like anyone who's played Guitar Hero and 5-starred a song on Expert will know that hollow feeling of looking down at the plastic controller and thinking, all the time I spent getting good at this, I could have been getting good at an actual musical instrument. Or the people that have spent absolutely ages unlocking Dark Ether and zombies, another thing that I've done, and then sat there at the end and thought, I just spent dozens of hours to get a slightly purple skin for a gun. Like, this isn't worth it at all. The worry of like substituting achievements in real life with achievements in games comes from the idea that games are much easier than real life. Like if you had to learn a craft, learn how to make something in real life, or you had to learn how to get to round 100 on a zombies map, obviously doing it on a zombies map is going to be much easier. Like the zombies always react kind of the same way. There's a lot of set challenges in it. The game is structured around making you more powerful and giving you different ways to get more powerful. It's going to be an easier thing. But then once you've got to the point where you've mastered it, where you're like amazing at that zombies map, you can do high rounds with no problems. That's all you can do. Like, that's not something that anyone's going to really care about. That's not something that's going to help you in other areas of your life or anything like that. If you learn a craft, you can then make something in the real world. You can do something that's useful, whether it's to society or to yourself or to your friends. You've learned a skill. Now, I'm sure there's lots of real life skills that are equally useless. I'm sure there's plenty of things that you could give examples of where you say, oh yeah, but spending hours and hours and hours learning this in real life is useless too. But I think there's a difference. I think video games are in the business of manufacturing challenges that are easy to overcome to give you that rush of accomplishing them. Like, that's what I think video games are about, because it's a really satisfying loop for our brains. It's a really satisfying feeling to feel like, yeah, I've completed this, I've overcome this challenge. And while getting that feeling in real life is very tough, getting in a video game is very, very easy. I worry that there's people in online communities that count their achievements and their successes in games as things that they're proud of in life, and then are maybe using that instead of having things that they're actually proud of in real life, like things that are maybe have more productive elements to them, or are maybe sort of more transferable skills. And I'm including myself in this. Like, I'm always worried. Like, I've been playing loads of New World lately. I'm always worried. I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm going to get to level 60 in New World. I'm going to get to the maximum level cap. And then thinking, but that's going to take dozens and dozens of hours. I could spend that time like tidying up the house, or working on sort of like the gear for my stream and stuff like that, or making videos, or doing all of these other things. Once I've got to level 60 in New World, what have I then got at the end of that? Like, they could just raise the level cap by another 10, and then that achievement is completely wiped out and doesn't even have any bearing on the game that I did it in. I'm sure there's loads of people who got to the maximum level at World of Warcraft, or the maximum item level, or people who completed Call of Duty games on Veteran all the way through without dying, or something like that. And it's like, does it matter now? Like, is that an achievement that you can still be proud of? So if games were easier, if games were so easy that anyone could complete them, that anyone could see the story all the way through to the end, maybe we'd start rewiring our brains and not thinking about games as a challenge to overcome and something, way of replacing achievements, but instead just as a form of entertainment, like books, like films, like music, where it's something that we can just enjoy, whether we're enjoying it by ourselves to experience a story, or something that we're enjoying socially with our friends, anything like that. I feel like that is a healthier mindset to come to games with. Now, like I said, let me know what you think in the comments. I might be way off here. You might have a really good argument against me, but try to keep it civil, try to keep it respectful. If you like these kind of videos where I'm just kind of talking at you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps out a bunch, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.